Thanks everyone for tuning in. And as everyone knows, I travel around the United States. I do a lot of different type of speaking engagements in front of conferences. But one of the things I love to do most is I love going into the local juvenile detention centers or the local residential treatment centers for youth and speak with them, interact with them. Because at the end of the day, this is my why. This is my motivation, my desire to hopefully give them something a little bit more than what they've gotten and something that I wish I would have gotten in order to help them along in their path. And so, as part of my traveling around to different juvenile detention facilities and residential treatment facilities, I have had the opportunity to start developing different type of study groups. And my most recent one was actually taking the book The Alchemist and creating a study group over it where we can just sort of discuss different aspects of it. And in my most recent discussion, there were questions that the youngsters had for me. And so I wanted to make sure I took the time to answer these questions because, while we do have a time to discuss things and go over questions and interactions with regards to the book, it's never enough time, right? I mean, because this is great stuff. This is really a great opportunity for them and for me. And so, yes, they send in questions to me, and I just want to take the time to answer those questions because I think they're important. So, if you like what you're seeing here and if you like the idea of what's going on, make sure that you hit the like button and you subscribe. I mean, my channel is one that really focuses on the positive aspects of what we're doing with our youth, how we're helping people who have been formerly incarcerated, and just how we can be our best version, no matter who we are and where we come from. And so, yeah, definitely hit the like button and subscribe. I appreciate it, definitely. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started.
How do you maintain reaching your goals and not go back to your old ways?
I gotta be honest with each and every one of you. It is not something that's a one and done. The road to redemption and the road to being your better self is a constant daily investment in yourself. And it's putting in the work even when you don't see the results because this is a process driven discussion. This is a process driven desire. This is a process driven outcome. So I stay focused on my why. At the beginning of this video, I talked about my why for doing what I do. And I remember and I remember those times when I was at my darkest and lowliest places to be my motivation never to be back there again. And so as you're going through life and whatever your struggles are, whatever you are rebounding from and the experiences that you've had in life of how you've grown up and whatever's been going on with you, you got to always remember your why and remember that you are resilient. And because you are, and because I know I am, I have to learn and I had to learn how to thrive. And thriving is my ability to not only achieve resiliency, but to maintain being resilient. That means looking around and using what I would like to refer to as structural reminders, things that I put on the walls, books that I read to remind myself why I'm in a better place and why I want to be my best version. And you could do the same thing. And it's something that's different for everybody. But again, it's not a one and done. It's a constant process of putting in that work on a daily basis, even when you're not receiving results or it appears as though you're not receiving results.
What jail were you in, and what was the hardest part of being incarcerated?
Being in jail was a was an experience, and I guess what I like to do first is I want to be able to explain the concept and the aspect of how I went about being in jail. Once I was in the juvenile detention for the fourth, fifth, sixth time, and I did get to that point where I was going to be waived to adult court. I honestly felt like it wasn't going to happen. So to me, it was like, yeah, you guys say this is never going to happen. And besides, I mean, my age, I'm not in a position to be waived to adult court. And so, but it happened. And I remember the day that I was transferred over to the jail. And the jail was a local county jail. And I remember being placed in the juvenile tank. And when I got there, I realized there were so many other juveniles that were part of the same process. And so, um, the thing that got me the most about jail was that I was treated like an adult. I mean, the jail system is not built on the idea that when you're in there, while you're waiting on trial and you're sentencing and all that stuff, you don't have a lot of ability to do a lot of different things, especially as a juvenile. And so it was horrible. It was monotonous. The ability to interact with family, the ability to interact with people was very limited. And the people that oversaw and supervised us were jail guards. So the ability for them to work with us was impacted by the way that they saw us. So how they spoke to us, how they interacted with us was it was very different than working in being in the juvenile facilities. And so it was culture shock. And it was truly a lack of treatment. There was nothing there to really help us. And we sort of, it was just like a wild zone where you just did whatever, and the guards came in when things got out of hand. But it was definitely an experience that I would not wish upon anyone. I saw things, I heard things, and I think that it was an experience that definitely impacted me. And then when I found out how much true time I was facing, which at that time was 45 years, it truly came down on me like a ton of rocks, a ton of bricks, to the point where it impacted my ability to see the future. And when I was told I had that many years, and I'm like, man, I've only been in this jail for like about 2 months, and I'm hearing the realness of what was going on. It just truly made me feel like I had no future, I had no hope, and it really severely impacted my mental health. And on top of the fact that there was really nothing in there to help me deal with the different things that was going on. So my experience was truly, like a lot of other juveniles that end up being in the county jail, was truly um, it was horrible. And I think that that's important to know and understand. So if you have the ability to avoid that, definitely make sure you take into account what could happen if you do get waived to adult court, which is never a good thing.
How did you learn to deal with your anger?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Anger was something that I struggled with for a lot of years. I was just angry. I know a lot of you guys would just wake up angry, right? You're angry with your situation, you're angry with life, you're angry with your parents, with people in your life. And so it was always a constant struggle. And so it was through truly at some point interacting with people that sort of started mentoring me in the most unlikely places like prison, and they seen a little bit more in me that I saw in myself. And as a result, I started learning a little bit more about how to manage myself and how to be a little bit more at peace with myself, because at the end of the day, hurt people hurt. So being able to truly go on a journey of self healing is important. But one of the aspects of my anger that really helped me out was learning chess and really involving myself in chess and understanding how all the pieces moved and how you needed to be in a clear state of mind and not allow it to be fogged up when you make different moves. Just like in life, when you're looking at what you're going to do next, if you allow anger to cloud you, you can make one mistake that will impact you for the rest of your life based on a feeling and an emotion. And when that has been such a important part of your character and who you were, it's hard to let that go. But it can happen. And not to mention that when you're angry, it feels good. It feels good to lash out. But you know, you always, like I did, always regret it later on. And so I started realizing through chess and through conversations, and again, I'm gonna go back to the books that I read and understand a little bit more about how I needed to take those anger outbursts, use it as a stepping stone to a better me. And through chess games, as I started learning how to accept loss, put my ego in check, how as I accepted the idea that I had a whole lot to learn, but if I clouded it with anger, it would get me to lose the game. I really started to understand a little bit more about part of my anger was having a very, very fragile ego. And what that means is that I didn't want anyone to tell me I was wrong. I didn't want anyone to question what I was doing. And that was built on a level of immaturity that I needed to escape eventually, because those were the type of um, thought patterns and thinking areas that actually allowed me to be in my situation of going to prison and being in solitary confinement for so long. So anger was something I knew that I was going to always experience, but it wasn't going to be something that I could continue to allow to affect me, to make me do things and say things that I would later on regret and impact so much more of my life. And honestly, it was through anger that allowed me and allowed the prison system to keep me there for so long and to keep me in solitary confinement for so long. So, in your present situation right now, there are times where you're angry and you just have to ask yourself, is this truly something that is a hill that you need to just dig yourself in on? Or is this a small thing to a giant? And are you going to allow yourself to be a better version of you by taking a moment to be humble and say, hold up, you know what? I can be wrong. There's a better way to do this. And eventually allow yourself to um, do better by just slowing down a bit and understanding the difference between things happen to you, and then there's how you respond to the things that happen to you, the things that are said to you. You got people that may be difficult in what they're doing and what they're going through in life, your peers. But there's a time when you have to just really look outside of that and say, do I really want this to impact me? In the sense of I'm going to respond and react. There's going to be external triggers, but then there's going to be the internal trigger of how you filter out what's being said to you. Are you being directed to go here, to go there? Because that's just part of what has to happen. Or is it truly something where you have to say, "Oh no, this is something that's insulting my ego." A lot of times that I wasn't successful was because of the fact that I allowed my ego to get in the way. So the opposite of anger and making decisions based on anger is being humble.
What piece of advice would you possibly provide for people in the foster care system?
What I'll start off saying is that the foster care system in the United States definitely needs improvements. But one of the things that I have noticed over the years that has been pretty significant with youth in the foster care system is that people have started to understand and value the importance of youth having voices and being involved in different type of legislation. And so as a result of being a part of these different type of legislative acts and so forth, there is an ability for youth in the foster care system to be heard. And so in your particular state, you want to seek out any of those self advocacy groups that allow you to truly speak up and be heard. And if you're in the foster care system, my advice to you is that it's going to be difficult, but you have to speak up. You have to learn the value of self advocacy without putting yourself in a predicament to be identified as being aggressive and being identified as being uncontrollable. With that being said, we know that just by the sheer fact that you're in there, it's because of nothing that you yourself have done. But one of the things that I really try to push forth with any youth that I work with is that there is a difference between being assertive and being aggressive. That is an important skill that you want to learn, because when you're being assertive, you're standing up for yourself. After so many years of having so many things done to you and for you without your voice, you have to be involved. So you're going to have a caseworker. That caseworker should be visiting you. You're going to have people that are involved in your life that are going to be creating treatment plans for you and so forth. And you're going to possibly be required to go back to places that you don't necessarily find to be safe. So you have to be safe. Even though it may be familiar to you, you have to speak up and say, hey, this is what I truly need. And I think that once you're able to do that, once you're in a position to really tap into those resiliency skills that you hear so much about, that is your time to truly advocate for yourself. I can go further into this, but for right now, I'm going to leave it at that, because I really want to make sure that you youth that are in the foster care system know and understand that empowerment is so important. Because again, throughout your whole entire life, people have been telling you what you need to do, who you can be around, and what's best for you. So there is going to be a time when you have to speak up for yourself. So learn those skills. And the moment you become aggressive, you become discounted. So you have to learn how to be assertive. And over the few months, at some point, I'm going to be discussing more of these skills that you need in order to be successful. And don't put yourself in a position to be crossed over to the juvenile justice system, because the majority of youth that are in the juvenile justice system started off in the foster care system. And so there in both systems are so many faults and so many issues, but there is an opportunity to speak up for yourself. So self advocacy, find out what's going on in your state that allows for youth to speak up for themselves. And once you start doing that, you will feel as though you have some control over your life. But that's a great question, and I appreciate that.
What made you want to work to change while in a juvenile facility?
You know, one of the things that I did while in the juvenile justice system that I would have never done otherwise because I was less distracted was reading. I had so many non successful events. Reading was something that I had control of. Reading was something that taught me so much more in life. So I started tapping into that. And I didn't realize at the time, but this was actually planting seeds in me that later on in life I could actually tap into and build on. And so reading allowed me to express myself more. It taught me how to have a much more expressive vocabulary. It taught me how to advocate for myself. It taught me that the world was so much more than what I had ever thought. Because up to that point, I'm dealing with one city and one type of group of people. And so reading, I was able to see so much more. And again, I was less distracted. I would have never thought about reading when I was out running the streets and so forth. But being able to read, being able to understand there's so much more, again, was so critical and so crucial to me being able to take control of my situation and allow me to be empowered in ways I thought that I never could. And so that planted the seeds of so much change because I also read about other people's stories that to this day still impacts me. And I seen and I understood so much more about the idea that redemption and being able to change your life was so universal. And the more I read about different people that did that, the more it empowered me. And I knew that at some point I was going to do more and have more and be more. I just didn't know when that was going to happen. But when it did happen, and when I did finally take control of that and started taking responsibility for my own decisions and understanding the fact that if I was going to change, it was going to come from me. It wasn't going to come from others. They can hand me tools, but it was up for me. It was up to me to be able to accept those tools and use them to chip away and build such a better person. And that is something that to this day I tap into.
Were prescription medications part of your growth and healing process while you were in facilities?
You know, prescription medications was something that wasn't necessarily something I took a lot of. But one of the things that I was able to see and understand was how significant it was to other people and how significant it was to how well some of my peers growing up did well or didn't do well based on their ability to have the right prescription or not have the access to the particular medication that they need. Now, later on in prison, I saw what happened to people that were over medicated. I saw what happened to people that were under medicated. So I think that when you're dealing with prescriptions, you have to ask yourself, is this helping me out? And I think when you realize that these prescriptions are helping you out and you are also making sure that you're getting your therapy and you're making sure that you're coupling this with other aspects of your treatment, you have to truly make sure that you are consistent with your medications in order to build yourself to more of a therapeutic levels in your system, because sometimes these medications are taken and we start feeling better immediately, but you want to keep taking them more consistently because it can affect your body in ways that you don't realize. So listen and also speak up. I mean, you're going to hear this as a reoccurring theme to me from me, which is speak up for yourself when you're in those interviews with the doctor and they're asking how you feel about certain medications or how they're making you feel and the side effects. If you don't speak up, you're going to feel disempowered. And the more disempowered you feel, the more resentful you're going to be, the more angry you're going to be. In closing, what I'll say is that I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time to be a part of our discussion about The Alchemist. I think this book is truly an impactful book, one that if you take the lessons from the characters that you meet while reading this book, you're going to find that these are characters that teach lessons about who you are. And just like Santiago, he's on a journey. You're also on a journey. You're going to meet people along the way, and it's up to you to decide to find omens and these signs and symbols around you and to heed them. And also to be able to understand that when you really want something, speak it. Because once you speak it, you start thinking it. And if you start thinking it, you start doing it. And then when you start doing it, that's truly who you are, because that's your character. And if you're doing it and it becomes second nature, it's easy to understand more about how you can be a more calm individual, how you can not react, how you can truly, just like Santiago, look through every single part of that journey, but also understand that the treasure lies in yourself. And when you start looking elsewhere for so many other things to sort of placate you or satisfy you, it doesn't allow you to find out more about who you are. So that when you're on your journey to find your personal legend, you don't allow things and people to get in the way. Because I know, just like me, everyone there wants to be successful at something. And you can do it. You just have to stay focused. Be humble. Be okay with the fact that you're going to make mistakes. Understand that your best looks different on different days. And you don't have to be perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.